Well. Welcome in. Starting a little bit early this week. I've got some family friends staying with us, and I don't want to be streaming for 10,000 hours into the evening. So we're going to get some stuff done. I actually have a plan for what to do this week, and we'll just shift stuff up a little bit. It'll be fun. Welcome in. If you're new here, my name's Andrew. I'm one of the two Andrews at Chroma Golem. We're making a game called Elixir Emporium. It's a really big open world crafting RPG, and we've got some really cool tech under the hood that basically makes it a really cool crafting RPG, because you basically generate game data as you play. So you're generating new items in the game when you're actually like crafting items. You're generating new recipes. You can use any item that you make on any object in the world to make even more items. We got a lot going on. I'll show it off in a minute. Welcome in Eno Moth. Yeah, there's two Andrews. You might see him in the chat as Tony Sprocket, but don't tell anyone his real name is Andrew. My name is also Andrew. There he is. Son of a gun. Welcome in, Tony. Or Andrew. As I said, our game is called Elixir Emporium. It is actually up on Steam right now for y'all to wishlist if it looks cool. Last week we worked on... obviously we have this cool system where you can create any item you want in the game, but we kind of had placeholders for those items actually doing things. So last week we built out the system that lets those items do things in the game. We built a really cool pointer system to game data, so you can define some effects in the game that say oh, this effect rolls these values and changes this property. We've got some items that change your camera FOV or your character's health or your move speed or your model size, all the cool stuff, but we've set it up to where they all work by just pointing to game data, and then in our engine that generates this new game data for items, they can pick and choose what effects make sense for those items. And then we're planning on also being able to generate some more effects later. So since it is just a pointer system, you can go ahead and generate endless items, really. Now let's jump on over there. I normally try to have some sort of plan of what to do on stream. I normally have a thing that I hold off to do until stream because it's a nice standalone piece. The last couple weeks we've been deep in that item system, that effect system, so we've kind of just started in the middle of it every week. I forgot to update this week's task in OBS, but we do have a little standalone thing this week. Let me update that real fast. We have all these effects that we added, and they work in the game. You see the effects, you see your character getting bigger or smaller or whatever, but we don't have buff icons or anything in the UI that explains what this does, how long it'll last. That's the main thing. We need to add we have a potion that you drink and get 10% bigger or smaller, and it lasts for I think 15 seconds, 30 seconds. So you can actually keep drinking it and keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is hilarious. But if you drink it, if you sip it over time, you start to see yourself get bigger, and then as the original ones are wearing off, you're getting smaller as you're getting bigger. So it's a little bit weird. So I think having some buff icons to just show when those effects last or when they end will help a lot. And I think that'll also be really useful for just letting the player play around them in the game, later on when we're working on NPCs, giving them more perception of what's around them. If you're small, you might be able to sneak by them, be out of their vision cone or something. So you want to be able to see how long you're going to be small for, so you're not just going to get big while you're sneaking by. But let me update this real fast. This week's task is UI for item effects and buffs. Do you have to drink more the bigger you get? You don't right now, but That would make a lot of logical sense, physical sense. I mean, right now there's no reason not to be huge other than trying to walk around and hit colliders of everything. So, I mean, I could see model size is an interesting like mechanic that you don't see in a lot of games. Like it doesn't really do anything other than visuals, but it would be cool to have some like second order effects. Like if you're bigger, you move faster, maybe you have more health, but like maybe you need to drink more of your potions for them to have an effect, something like that. And then you would just get smaller just to make the potions more effective. Yeah, that would be cool too. Like you could drink a potion to get really small, drink some other potions to like get really fast because you're so small. It's more effective, something like that. And then maybe you could craft some potions where those potions that make you really fast last a lot longer than the one that you drank to make you small. So you could get small real fast, drink a bunch of other potions, and then go back to normal but have those more effective potions. Could be cool. Yeah, I mean, I'll show off what we built last week. I'm also in the middle of working on some stuff in town, so we're not in our usual starting spot, but yeah, it should be cool. We've got a lot of items with a lot of effects, or just a few effects so far. We're still adding more. We're hard coding them in for now, but we're gonna generate them later. But you've got your character as you've always had. Let's see. You've got an inventory full of stuff that I've just thrown in the player's inventory for them to test out while we built all this. But some of the more interesting things are... Let's see, do we actually have our potion of getting big? We might not. I might have swapped it out of the inventory, but I can add it back in. We do have some equipment that has the same effect. So we've got our Giant's Ring that has ×6 model scale. So you're going to get real big when you wear that. I love just running around huge. I wish I had the potion because you can just get absolutely ginormous, like the size of this tree, and just run around in the world. I think there's some really cool like puzzles or like map effects or map puzzles. Like if you go over to the mountains and there's little holes that you need to get small to get through to find new areas, or maybe there's some areas that you can only get to when you're big enough to like step over the rocks or something. That'd be cool. We've also got, I think, the opposite as well. We've got a mouse charm that makes you nice and small too. So it would be cool to have potions have more effects when you're this small. Let's see if we can maybe craft something. So we can craft maybe a Giant's Ring and what might make us even bigger? A bee? Nah, probably not. I just have a bunch of random items for crafting and seeing what we get right now, but let's see what we get. So there's no recipe in the game for what happens when you mix a bee with a Giant's Ring, obviously. So that's us generating the game data. We got a giant bee mount. There's not actually like models associated with it quite yet, but ooh, is that a bug? Interesting. You'd actually unequip stuff for the effect to go away. But you get kind of move speed as an affix, so you get a sense of how fast you go, and then maybe you go a little faster when you equip it. So you can equip stuff. If we wanted, we could go back into town if we're like, hey, I don't actually want this. I want my Giant's Ring back. Disregard me taking the shortcut through town. You can go over and break those items back into their components too. So if we, let's see here, take this off, grab that, salvage this back to its components. Oh, we broke it, R&R. Isn't it crazy hard to make a game for different player sizes? Yes, it is crazy hard. Luckily, we don't have combat in the game right now. It's a very like plot-driven game, so all these NPCs have their own disregard the giant bee mount. They have their own personalities and backstories right now are very simple, but they also know their profession and their place in the town, so they're going to be just endlessly generating new problems for themselves that act as quests for the player. Excuse me. So this guy, he's got a problem right now as a blacksmith. Every time he starts working the metal, his tools sing to him. Full-blown opera. So you could get him, like, craft him some earmuffs, or like maybe make him a potion, offer to help find the source of the singing phenomenon. Lots of different ways you could approach it. We have a kind of like a line to use of it's a puzzle, or it's a problem, not a puzzle. Like, there's lots of different solutions, there's not just one. So trying to keep it really open-ended is also really hard for making a game where there can be endless solutions to things. We actually have a lot of really cool AI stuff under the hood for the quests where if you were to give him an item, say we gave him this frozen flower, which probably isn't going to solve his problem, but I did break everything, so this might not work. But we actually, under the hood, have an AI engine where it basically tells that AI all of the context of, like, here's the character, here's the player, here's the character's problem, here's the item that they crafted and how they crafted it and why it might help. Does this solve the quest or not? And so we serialize that back into the game data to branch and decide whether it solves the quest or not. This one did not. He needs something more magical in nature to quiet his tools opera. So you can take that as a hint and go craft something else that might be more helpful. And then maybe give him that instead, see how it is. So yeah, it is crazy hard to make a game for different player sizes, but we're shooting for a crazy hard game that's very, very open-ended. So if you want to play as a big guy and do big guy things, sure. So I'm realizing we have sugar and spice in our inventory, and I'm wondering what we might craft that into. Oh no. Yeah, everything's broken. Don't mind me. We need to restart it. What originally broke it? I don't actually remember. But luckily, we're not working on that today. Can you talk the NPC out of their problems without giving them anything? You know, I hadn't considered that. You technically can't, as the code is written right now, but it would be really, really easy to incorporate that, like, is this quest done background loop that we do when you give them an item. It'd be really easy to add that, like, on each message as well, so you could convince them, like, you know, it's actually better if your items sing to you or something like that. That's a good idea. I'm gonna jot that down real fast. Don't mind me taking some notes off camera. Also, I think my stream might have froze. Oh no. Did my stream freeze? Nope, just my camera. Okay, that's a little weird. And the most awkward position. I'm sure it'll be back in a moment. I had some issues with it a couple weeks ago where it would freeze. I don't know why. Let's see if I can toggle some stuff around. I freeze because of the flower. Oh, right. Okay. I gave him the flower and it froze. Or I froze. Let me do this real fast. Hopefully I don't break everything. Can I just reset my camera? Surely all is going to be well. But if it doesn't come back, I'll just turn my camera off and keep going. It's all good. Ripperonis. Camera's dead. We will try once more, and then we will get into the code. Also, Enomoth, welcome in. Also, it's nice to have you here. How's your day going? I guess it was a frozen flower, wasn't it? Alright, looks like our camera's dead. That's alright. Don't worry about it. Let's get into some code. You'll actually be able to see more code because the camera won't be covering it. You're kind of bored. You doing anything fun today, or you at work, or doing some other stuff? Also, do you do any game dev, or are you more to just watch it at work right now? I understand the boredom then. What do you do? Also, I'm just going to quickly mock up just like where we're going to place our buffs for the effects that we've got, so we can kind of build those prefabs, those reusable objects that we will create when we consume an object. Just gonna get something rough up real fast. Do a buff UI display. Have a background. Wasting my life on these Excel spreadsheets. You know, I'm a big fan of spreadsheets, but I'm not sure that I would love working in them all the time. Defect triage. Oh boy. So like Q&A maybe. Unless it's more like defects in real life. It could be fun though. I'm sure. I mean, I do love a good like really big spreadsheet, but yeah, it does sound pretty rough to just work in them for a long time. We're gonna grab a couple of these, we'll throw them in real fast so we can do a horizontal layout group, and then we will get rid of managing the dimensions. Organize them a little bit, separate them a bit, like that. So don't want all those now, just want to make sure that was set up correctly. How long have you Andrews been working on this game? It's a good question. We've been working on this for, I think it's about 4 months now. We were working on a bunch of other smaller games just to prototype stuff out. That's not where I meant to go. We actually had a 2D version of this that we did 2 or 3 months of work on, and people really liked it. I really liked it. It was literally just the crafting system, so it's probably more like 6 months when you include this, but this was basically just the crafting system and just the quest system, and I really liked it, but I wanted to have more opportunities to like just collect more and more items, and we thought it'd make a really good fit into a 3D world where you can go out and forage in the world. I've always wanted to make a game that has like more RuneScape style skills. So like wood cutting, mining, smithing, farming, all that jazz. They're great ways to get more and more items, and especially like items that you basically have a way to target the types of items you want. So if you want to be a fisherman or something, you can go out and fish, get a bunch of fish, and then you can do a bunch of cooking, and then you can maybe do a little bit of like merchanting, trying to sell stuff around town. Very open-ended there. I really like games where you can go through like the combat route, but there's also these kind of non-combat routes if you want to play as well. But this is our original demo. We've got some NPCs. Actually, I don't know if this will work. I think I cycled our API keys a couple weeks ago and I haven't updated it on itch. Nope, that's incorrect. But yeah, it's kind of the same thing where like there's no recipe combining crystal bottle and flour. You just combine them, you get a new item. And obviously it's a lot faster here because we're not generating like game data around the item or like images for the item or those kind of second order effects. And then you can give those items to NPCs to solve their quest or not. Obviously you track like all your recipes. There's a little store. You can buy items. We've kind of converted that into every NPC in the game now has their own inventory and they'll buy and sell items from you or to you. There was a little bit of traveling here, so you could travel to new locations and it generates new NPCs there as well that are more themed to the location. They'll all have their own quests themed to that location. And then this was our original like foraging, which this is basically what has become a 3D world. So now you can go out and get dirt yourself or get grass yourself or make fire or whatever you want to do. And I guess I'll quickly show the other like really, really cool thing in this game, I think. It's our harvesting system where obviously you can create all these items, but you can also use any item you want on any object in the world. So for example, get me out of here. If I made, let's mix like a fire resistance potion and a chisel, we'll make something. Or maybe we also do like an axe and ash in a sec when this is done. Definitely is a lot faster in the old thing. So we got an enchanted chisel. Let's see what else we get with this. But you put those on your hotbar. And we've got an ashen axe. So you can actually use those on any object in the world. So ashen axe on a shade tree is gonna generate like what that item would give when used on this object. And so now we're getting cooled ash logs, probably because it has fire resistance on the axe. But if you wanted to use your enchanted chisel on it, you'll get something else. If you just use a regular axe, you'd probably just get shade logs. So all that is generated on the fly and stored in your little notebook of recipes and stuff that you've discovered. So it remains the same for the rest of the game. You're just basically generating the game as you go. So if you find some cool recipes that maybe need a lot of cool ash logs, then you know where to get them. You know, you just go craft up a ashen axe or similar and go use it on a tree. And maybe you use that with like some chalk. You want to make a lot of stuff. Is that data generated or is it stored on a database? It is all generated on the fly, and then it's stored in, there's just like some internal game state. But the next time that you play, it'll, like, as soon as you leave the game, it's wiped right now. Obviously, you want to be able to like save and load and continue your game. We don't have any saving or loading in yet. So every time you play the game, it's going to be different. So if I went right back in and combined the same items, it's going to give me new items now. And I think that'll be really, really cool once we have saving and loading. You kind of, it is like almost random at the start, and randomness is not the greatest in games, but I think it's a cool like effect where it starts out random, but once you've done it once in the game, it's no longer random. It will always be that item. If you replay the game, it's going to be a new item, but then it'll always be that item. So we combine Ashen and Axe again. I think previously we got that Ashen Axe. We'll see what we get this time. So now we've got a Smoldering Axe. And if we use that Smoldering Axe on our Shade Tree, it's going to do the same sort of process. We'll see what we get now. So now we get Smoke Wreathed Wood. Wood from a shade tree, tinged with smoky essence, useful for crafting or unique fires. And so maybe we want to take that, and we could go over and use that on, say, the campfire. See what we get here. Just lots and lots of basically endless combinations. I think one thing that would be cool to add in later, we're planning on doing some sort of building system where you can craft workstations, obviously decorate the world and stuff like that, but that also leads really well into some like automation. So if you set up some stuff to like use this on this repeatedly to collect items and then feed that into something else that always combines these items to give something else, I mean, automation's a whole thing. But I think the cool part of building is being able to build these new crafting workstations that all do different things. They're hard-coded in right now, but they're also like part of the engine under the hood where if we were to, if we were to put in some pollen and make a helmet, there's no like pollen helmet in the game, so it's gonna, this is like an alternative to the alchemy that you do. You can craft items in other ways using these workstations as well. So you can really, there's a lot of different routes you can take to make the perfect item you want, which feeds back into all the NPCs have the quests. You come up with an idea of like, ooh, this guy's tools are singing. I want to make him some earmuffs. We want to make sure that when the player has an idea for like what they think would solve someone's quest, they have probably a little bit of a long route, but they have a route, excuse me. They have a route where they can get to that item. It's not like unattainable. Like some people have described it as like Scribblenauts almost, where you're given a problem, you come up with the answer, and then you figure out how to get that into the game. Compared to a lot of games where you're given a problem and then you like just look through your inventory to decide what of this would be most likely to solve the problem. We want to like really hype up that crafting. You can make whatever you want, give those items a lot of purpose. You can craft your own equipment with its own effects. So like our pollen helmet gave us an allergy guard helmet. With some move speed, maybe we also do some pollen boots. This is such a good idea. I'm glad you think so. I think it's really, really cool. Like, I find myself getting distracted a lot. Like when I'm coding and I jump into the game to test stuff, I usually just like spend 5 or 10 minutes each time just combining items and seeing what I get. So we got some more move speed on our floral boots. We're going to add a lot more effects that items can generate with. Right now it's pretty limited, so you'll see a lot of the same stuff. But I think you can do some crazy stuff like, where you walk plants flowers or something. And if that is a possible effect that items can have, if you were to craft something like floral boots, it would probably have it on it. And you're like, what the heck? I just crafted this and it has this really unique effect. That's super cool. Let's make some like honey pants, maybe. Plate legs, honey plate legs. And all this is, I mean, obviously it's a work in progress here. But But we've also got the beginnings of like a skill system here. So in the demo up on Steam that we will have real soon, all this is unlocked, so you don't need to like level up your blacksmithing in order to craft all this stuff. We want to be able to let you experiment and play with the systems. But the eventual goal is like you're doing quests for the blacksmith to level up your blacksmithing skill. You're doing blacksmithing to level up your blacksmithing skill, etc. As you level that up, you learn these new recipes for different items you can make. And so you get some sort of like progression that way. We got some sticky plate legs, which doesn't actually have any effects. So maybe we can combine that with like a fire resistance potion or something. But yeah, that's kind of the gist. We'll put that on in a sec. Do you know the tabletop RPG Ars Magica? It has a system to create spells that may be useful to think about the creation of those effects. I don't. I have, interestingly enough, played an Ars Magica Minecraft mod, but let me look up Ars Magica. I'm actually super interested in, like, I mean, obviously Wizard games in general, but any Wizard game where you can kind of create your own spells is like a really niche thing for me, and I'm instantly into it. I don't know if you've heard of Noita. I have been watching people play this for the last couple weeks. I haven't played it myself yet, but you basically get all these pieces that you combine to make spells, and I'm probably going to play this on stream sometime in the next couple weeks, just to see how it works. But anytime there's a game where you can just like customize your spells, I'm playing Path of Exile right now, where you can customize your spells a lot. So I'll check out Ars Magica. Well, let me see. Role-playing game set in Mythic Europe. Okay, pretty deep lore. Die rolling conventions. Okay, so pretty standard tabletop stats. How similar would you say is it to like D&D? Is it played the same way? Is it like is there a dungeon master that kind of progresses the other players through a story, or is it like more structured where you're kind of like playing a specific playing through a specific game that has already been created? Oh, this is completely different. Okay. Oh wait, do you mean the game is different, or I'm reading the wrong article? I'm gonna read this magic system. 15 arts, 5 techniques, 10 forms, sometimes called a verb-noun system. Okay, I'm sold already. Technique is the verb, what effect the magic has, and the form is the noun, object or substance that is affected or brought forth. Formulaic spells and spontaneous spells. Greater flexibility but lower potency. Interesting. Create, perceive, transform, destroy, control. Okay, that's cool. And then you modify those with the noun. So that gives you a lot of combinations. And then your skill when casting a spell is the sum of the scores of that technique and form. Interesting. Huh. Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely check this out. This sounds interesting. Ars Magica Minecraft mod. This is what I only barely started playing, and there was no like documentation on how to make it work or anything. I wish I had some better screenshots. And it sounds like it's very similar, where you're it's not gonna work if there ain't no screenshots. But you basically craft spells by combining, I think, a verb and a noun in the game. You collect some items. That's interesting. Huh. Thank you for the recommendation. I'll keep that. I'll check it out. But yeah, I do love me some games where you create your own spells. Well, actually, I've got some screenshots here in a super secret channel in our Discord. Don't tell anyone. But also, nice little plug for our Discord if anyone's interested. We have a Discord, but let me show off. Let's see what's a good screenshot here. Yeah, so in this game, you get skill gems. I've seen the idea of this game. It's been in your head for a while. Absolutely, yeah. In this game, you find skill gems. So, like, this top gem might be, like, Fireball. Cast a Fireball at a target. You can ignore this tool tip here. The skill stuff isn't actually part of it. But this top gem might be Fireball. And so you would put that in your weapon, and that gives you the ability to cast Fireball with it. But you might also find a like support gem that says like whatever spell this is attached to, if it fires projectiles, it fires 5 projectiles instead of 1. So you find that and you're like, ooh, what spell do I want to modify with this? I'll attach it to my fireball, so now I shoot 5 fireballs instead of 1. And then you might find another support spell. It's like when your projectiles hit something, they explode into like a burst of lightning. And so you might attach that to your fireball as well. So now you're shooting 5 fireballs that all explode into lightning. And so you kind of make your own spells in that way too, which is really, really cool, I think. And this game has like 700 spells that you can start with, and then like I think 500 different ways to modify each one, and you can have multiple modifications on a single spell, or lots of cool stuff there. I'm still getting into it. I just started it a couple weeks ago, but seems really, really fun so far, at least. But yeah, that's I love wizard games, and I love like crafting RPGs, and I was a sucker for RuneScape back in the day, where you just like, it's a really good second screen game where you just want to like collect some stuff. Maybe you're watching some Netflix and you just want to like spend some time woodcutting, collect a bunch of stuff, so when you get home later you can craft a ton of stuff. Or like maybe you just want to go hard for a couple hours and max out all your relationship scores with all the NPCs in town, or like get to the next level of blacksmithing. Like it's really easy to create a lot of little goals for yourself in that sort of open-ended game. And so we've been mostly focused on the like systems in this game for a long time. Obviously the graphics are all very like little older than I would like. They're kind of still placeholdery, but they're in that weird spot where like they were meant to be placeholders, but they look just good enough that they could be perceived as like the final art. So hopefully it'll look nicer soon, but we were focusing more on just like the systems and being able to craft cool stuff, do cool stuff with it, and just making it look nice. You know what? We'll do a little placeholder icon for buffs right now. And then, let's make sure these are, let's do like 48 by 48 maybe. And we'll set like overrides on the effects. So also on each display, we're also going to need like a tooltip that shows when you hover over it with some text. So let's say hover tooltip. Let's give it some dimensions. Give it a background. Maybe that's more gray. And I guess we could just position it. Like we could have it follow the mouse cursor in the corner. Like, more like this. But we'll put some text on top. So the things that we need to show are the effect name, the line here that is just like a display override for what it does. And then we probably also want to show the original duration and also the time remaining. So kind of 4 pieces of text here. But I think we can also show the time remaining in visual form on the icon itself. So if we were to do like a time remaining thing here, we could set it to be radial, I think, somehow. Image type. Yeah, that's the fill type we want. Do I need to give it a sprite maybe? Oh, I actually do. So we want filled radial 360. Let's give it a real sprite of just like green. Well, maybe let's do yellow on top. Red, something. And then what we can do is set this to like the max time, and we can do kind of like the clock like this as it counts down. Maybe not red though. Could do purple. Blue's nice too. Let's do purple. No, let's do blue. So we can count that down, which I think will look nice. Cool. And the icon's displayed on top of that. Perfect. Let's get this text sorted out. What we're gonna do is, let's do a text container with a vertical layout group. We will say effect name, effect display, and duration. Effect duration. So this guy, like, we can probably go pretty small text on these guys. So we used blue for the effect countdown, so I want to use blue on the text for the remaining time as well, but we'll just lighten it up a little bit. And we'll say like maybe something like that. 3 seconds remaining. I feel like we're gonna need to expand this a bit so we can get a couple lines on the effects. Let's control the width, but not the height actually. Now that stuff is a little more in place. So we could probably fit line 2, line 3. If we go down to 10, that'll be good. I think we also want to decrease this a bit because we're gonna have some long names as well. So maybe we should make this a little wider as well. And then we probably want to give this like a border too. I don't know if we have a border we can easily just throw in, but let's see if we do. Frame. That'll do. Seems fine. Now we can up this padding a little bit. Maybe like 8. 7 and 7. That'll do. Alrighty, and let me jump back to that. Make sure everything's still looking good. Let's see if I can plug my camera back in quite yet. Give it a second though. I mean, it's kind of nice for me to not be on camera because I always feel so awkward, but it's probably more exciting for you guys. So this looks pretty good. So if we had a couple of these guys, obviously we're only going to show one tooltip at a time, but if we had a bunch of buffs, seems like a reasonable size. The 3 seconds remaining might be a little bit small. It's probably a little bit small. Let's up that a little bit and then maybe decrease the effect. It's like 9. I feel like UI is the thing that I never want to work on, but it makes for good streams because I have to just sit down and do it. But I would much rather just be in the code, writing cool code. But you gotta do what you gotta do, I suppose. Alright, are we missing anything in this icon? I don't think so. I mean, I guess one thing that we could do, there's a game UI database, really helpful website if you're making games or just really like looking at games. You can search for like pieces of UI. I want to see if they have anything for like buffs. Skill use maybe? Or yeah, I guess there was some in notifications. Just want to see if there's any like obvious information that we are forgetting. I don't think so, because we've got the duration and the effect. We could technically show like what gave you the effect or like some other stuff, but I think it's probably fine. Let's just see if we get anything if we say buff. Yeah, it's probably fine. All right, so let's make our prefab, and then we'll rig it up with code so it actually works. We want it in GUI HUD prefabs. Let's say buff UI display, and then that, I think the way that we'll set this up to work is when you consume a consumable item that gives you some effect, or when some other event gives you some effect, what we'll do is create a new buff UI display for that effect, add it to our buff bar. We will have some sort of script on here for managing it, managing that like timer. When the timer goes away, it is what will remove it from the buff bar. But I think we can make it nice and standalone that way, where no matter how the player gets the effect applied to them, they can just add it to the buff bar from anywhere, and then the buff bar will manage itself, and assuming nothing removes the effect early, I guess, then everything will be synced where the effect will end at the same time the buff bar's display ends. We end the effect by just triggering a coroutine that runs for X amount of seconds and then removes the effect. So we could have that coroutine also manage the buff bar, but I feel like we probably want one entry point that creates this here. We don't want a lot of different coroutines all trying to modify stuff in the buff bar that might overlap with each other, I think. But let's rip this out and see how it works. So we'll say buff UI display controller. Oops. Boy howdy, what's going on here? Buff UI display controller. Cool. And then in there, we can set up our entry point to like create it, set the data, and then count down, remove it when it's done. So what we will do is say public void load buff data for item effect. So that's what we'll use. We've got to set up our references to stuff though. So we're gonna need public image buff image override. We haven't set this up on the item effect side quite yet, but if we provide an image, we will let the buff display that image. Otherwise we'll have a generic like just buff image, I think. So we'll have that. We've got public image time remaining radial. We've got our let's put this first actually. Just matching the order over here. We've got our public game object for hover tooltip container, we need a public text mesh pro UGI for buff name, buff effect, and buff duration, I guess. I was gonna say time remaining, but I think duration will work better. Yeah, I think that's all we need for now. So all we're gonna do when we get an effect is we say, well, first let's go ahead and jump over here real fast. So we can say public sprite buff icon override. So we make that optional. And then now we can load all the data because we have the data now. So we were going to say if effect.buff icon override is not equal to null, then we will set that. Actually, what we do want to do is say public sprite default buff icon up here. We'll set that on the prefab so it'll always be set. But we can branch based on whether there's a override or not, obviously. We want the buff name to be the name, effect to be the display override. We do actually, since the display override is optional, if it's not set, we're going to need to do a little bit of calculation to generate what we want to show for the string. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. We'll say if effect dot is empty, then we can go ahead and we actually did this already. Let's see, what's the best way to search for this? Can't even remember, but I think it's in equipment window manager. Yeah, it's not the prettiest, but all we're doing is taking the stat modifier type, which is the operation, and then the modifier value and the stat to modify. So it'll say like +5 strength or ×2 model scale. So we will just do the same thing here. And I probably want to abstract that out somewhere, but for now, this works just fine. So custom effect line, oops. We default it to empty, then we will just do the exact same thing. Cool, cool, cool. But if there is an override, we'll go ahead and use it. Lastly, we need to do the durations. So let's see what it's doing here. Buff duration.text is the duration in seconds. Let's say seconds remaining here. So we match this format here. We're gonna need to round this to an integer. So I think we do like integer.parse. Forget how to do it in C#. int.parse. And technically that could throw an error if we is there Unicode in here? If we if it's null or like somehow we set ABC for a duration, but hopefully that's not going to be the case. We'll set our time remaining radial fill amount to maximum, and then I guess we could tick down in a coroutine. I don't know if it's better to tick down in a coroutine or if it's better to just have an update that triggers. I feel like we can just put it in like a fixed update because it doesn't really need to fire that often. But Oh, here's our Unicode down here. Buff duration.text. So, are there any times when we are not going to have duration in seconds? I feel like if there's no duration, like it's permanent, then we shouldn't show a buff at all. So I think what we want to do is just say if, well, we probably just want to only trigger this if there is a temporary buff to show. We don't want to like check to see if the duration in seconds is 0 here and destroy this. It'd be a little bit weird to create the object and then immediately destroy it. So we know duration in seconds is greater than 0. We can just set this. And then I think what we'll do is do a void fixed update, which is normally for physics, but happens less frequently than update. And since we're updating just every second on our time remaining, and also most of the time it doesn't even need to update because like we're not going to be showing this tooltip. Well, I guess let's just we'll do a coroutine because we can just yield every second there. And we'll say start coroutine, update buff duration, void IEnumerator, update buff duration. Alright, not void. So all we're going to do is we start with our time remaining of the total duration of the buff. While there is duration left, we are reducing our time remaining. We are parsing to the second, so 3 seconds and then 2 seconds and then 1 second. We're not going to go like 3 seconds, 2.99999, 2.99998, etc. We're going to set our new fill amount, and then we will yield back to the main thread to do stuff so we're not blocking. Then on the next frame, this will trigger again. We reduce by delta time, which is just the time between frames. So that should work until we have no time remaining. Now we should say fill amount is 0. Just to be safe, let's say 0 seconds remaining. I mean, it's not really going to matter because we're just going to destroy this game object, but it's nice to clear it out, I guess. And then we will say destroy this game object. And we could like pool it or something, but it's fine. So that will destroy this object that has the script on it. So hopefully you can destroy the game object from within a coroutine without any issues. I guess we'll find out. But seems fine. What we're gonna do is test, well, I guess we need to be able to like call it first before we can actually test it. But one thing that we are missing is this hover tooltips functionality. Obviously we only want to show it when the player is hovering over the actual icon. We don't want this showing all the time because they're going to stack up like this, which is a little silly. So what we are going to do is use our iPointer enter handler and iPointer exit handler, which triggers when the player's cursor goes in or out of a raycast object. We need to make sure that, well, I think the raycast targets on the children will work to trigger this. We'll make sure, but we need to make sure that the tooltip itself doesn't have any raycast targets that would block this, because it might, like, you show the tooltip and then the tooltip is in front of your mouse and then the iPointer exit would trigger because your mouse isn't over this anymore. Let's make sure that these are all not raycast targets. And make sure that pivot point is at the bottom left because we're going to follow the cursor on that. Let's implement these so we can fill them out here. So when we enter this, we just want to show that tooltip container, and let's go ahead and set a flag for whether it's showing or not, and then we'll have an update method that says if it is showing, position it to where the cursor is. So we'll say public or private bool is showing hover tooltip is false. So here we can just say true, false, and then void update if that, then hover tooltip container dot transform dot position is equal to input dot mouse position. I think that will work. So if you move your mouse around, this tooltip's going to follow you, and setting the pivot point on this tooltip as we did to the bottom left should align the bottom left with where your cursor is, which I think is what we want. Let's double check that's bottom left, yeah. Cool, okay. So the other part of this system is we need to create these when the player drinks a consumable. So let's apply all these changes to the prefab. Let's set our references that we've created. So time remaining, buff image override, default buff icon, let's just say we'll use that for now. Our hover tooltip container, buff name, buff effect, buff duration. These are all just the references that we need to be able to update those properties in here. And let's apply those so they all are default when we create new buff UI displays. And then let's head over to, let's see, how do we, is it our tool belt container? Our tool belt controller? Is that how we use items? No. The code has ballooned so much that I'm like, I don't remember where things are. So when the player uses an item, it's probably the player controller. Apply effect. This gets called from item effect applier service, which is probably a better place. And this gets called from, yeah, the player controller here. So I think because the item effect applier service we also use to, like, if you have your potion to make things bigger, you can drink it yourself to be bigger, but you can also pour it on objects to make them bigger, and it calls this same thing, but just on the object you're using it on. We want to go all the way up to the chain to where the player is actually consuming a consumable. So that's where we want to create our buff display. So here. So for each effect, we will now create a buff UI element in the HUD. And so to do that, all we need is, hiccups. We need a public game object buff bar container, so the reference to the parent where we want to add these prefabs to, and we also need a public game object buff bar, let's call it a buff UI display, and we'll call that, we'll prefix it with prefab. So we'll create one of these in this. So easy peas, we just instantiate prefab buff UI display in the buff bar container dot transform, and that's going to return our buff display. And so we want to do that, but actually whatever we really called it. Load buff data. Cool. So that should now work. Should all work perfectly on the first try. As it always does, I promise I never write any bugs. Everything always just works. So let's give that a try. This is in the player controller, so we're gonna need to set those references we just created here. So our, actually, let's do one little tweak. Let's say UI references, and we're gonna say public transform buff bar container here. And instead of storing that on the player, and probably both of these could live over there. Let's move both of them over there. UI references, both of those. So now we're just gonna say UI references dot instance dot prefab buff UI display and UI references dot instance dot buff bar container, which is now a transform itself, or will be in a second. And I feel like we could do buff bar UI controller here and skip this get component. Just do that. I think that'll work. Maybe I should make sure it works before doing the funky stuff, but I'm pretty sure that'll work. Alright, so now we'll actually set the references when this rebuilds. So we have our buff bar container here. We have our buff UI display here. Let's get rid of the default one we have. We do want to, let's make this hover tooltip disabled by default so we can test hovering over it to show it, but let's go drink some potions, assuming we have any. Actually, I don't think we have any because we added too many things to our inventory. So let's say, what do we have? Max, it's a good one. Global starting items, blah, blah, blah. Here, let's get rid of some of this stuff that we don't need. Let's say 10 random items. And let's make sure we got our growth potion, shrink potion, blah, blah, blah. That looks good. All right, let's try this. Cool, cool, cool. It's gonna be great. Alrighty, so now, no buffs, no errors, hopefully. No real errors, at least. If we drink growth potion. Heyo. Well, we have 2 buffs for some reason. Okay, it adds 2 buffs at a time. They don't tick down the durations. The tooltip isn't correct. We probably want to reposition them somewhere too. The text, like the description of what it does, isn't correct. Oh, you know what? 2 buffs is actually technically correct here because there are 2 effects. Because on, for example, our growth potion, it gives a model scale buff and a move speed buff. So when you drink it, should you get 1 buff or 2? I mean, we could do 1 buff that's like the name of the item and has like the cumulative effects of all the stuff on it. Or we could do 2 buffs, which might make more sense for some like... I mean, it makes the most sense when you have effects that have different durations. Like, these are both the same duration, but if, for example, this one was 30 seconds and this was 15, you would absolutely want it to be 2 different buffs. I think with 2 effects, maybe you should just get 2 buffs, and we can just give them different icons. So let's say for speed, let's do some boots. Maybe shoes. Horseshoes, sure. And then for scale, do we have anything that looks big? Up, maybe? Grow. Let's just do something weird. Sure, we'll give them a flag. So now they should have, let's test 1 display effect override of get real big, and then this is blank, so it should calculate it based on the stats. So it should say times 1.3 move speed, or 1.3 move speed. But we do need to check to see why the radial bit isn't ticking down, and why it's, I think it did remove itself, but so update buff duration, time remaining radial dot fill amount was time remaining divided by effect dot duration in seconds. That sounds right, because this is going to be the total. So it's going to be like 3 out of 3 originally, which is full, and then after a second it's going to be 2 out of 3, which is 2/3 full. So that sounds right. And then at the end it's 0 out of 3. Oh, right. It also wasn't positioning to our mouse, but I think we actually, the easiest thing is to just get rid of that and position that on the UI such that they're above the buff, so we don't need to worry about overlapping with other buffs anyway. So let's position that real fast and make that look nice. So we've got our buff UI display. So if we have that on, we've got a couple of these. We actually want this to be more, let's do a center pivot. And we'll just do it like above when you hover over it. Is that centered? I can't even tell. No, absolutely not. So something like that. Now when you have multiple, only the one that you're hovering over is going to show, but it's not going to at least overlap with the other objects or the other buffs. Like, otherwise what we would need to do is basically when you hover over this guy, if his hover tooltip was like this, obviously these guys are over. What we would need to do is just move this guy to be the last sibling in the buffs thing to ensure that he gets displayed over the others. But obviously that reorders the buffs, so we don't want to do that. We could also separate out the hover tooltip and just populate it with the data of whatever is hovered over and have one hover tooltip and position that to the mouse. We could do that, but I think it's just fine to position it above it. So we'll do that. So let's apply those changes. Let's remove these. This looks like I didn't do what I just meant to do. So let's apply these changes. And let's take a look at why it might not count down. Time remaining radial fill amount does get set. Okay. Let's check to see if this sets. Also put this first in case this is erroring. But at least let's make sure that the coroutine is running. You know what? I got no camera, but I'm gonna put on some headphones then, and I'll put on some nice Spotify. Let's jam. Hopefully it's not too loud, but let's see what we got. Looks like some video game music to me. Sure. Oh boy. It's coming out of my monitor. Hopefully you don't hear a double. Alrighty. So how's this sound on stream? Sounds good to me, I think. Just let me know if it's too loud. We just bopping. Alright, so back to these buffs. If we drink the growth potion, we should now get 2 buffs with different icons, which we do. Oh, we are erring. That explains why a lot of stuff is broken. Input string not in the correct format? For a throw, overflow, or format exception. Okay. Input string, you say. Update buff duration for effect. Sure. I feel like this has to be erroring on... Oh, you know what? It's probably erroring within this, and I bet... Let me just kill this line entirely. So we're not going to get the tooltip text updating, but we will at least see, hopefully the radio will update. We almost there. Alright, growth potion. Still get an error, interesting. Wait, no error this time. Okay. Well, that's weird because we still look like we have an error. Huh. Oh, okay. It is kind of working. So they're on by default. It is ticking down, I see, on one of them, but not... Oh, it is ticking down on the other. It's just really, really light because the icon is on top of it. But this one has a transparent background, so you see it a lot better. Okay. Um... Alright, we can work with that. So the things that are not working are... We should probably bring in the icon a little bit so we see a little bit more of a border. We'll expand out the radial so it goes all the way to the edges so we can see it around the icon, because I think what we'll end up doing is putting this item icon as our buff icon on these. The branch where we don't have an override on the text, so this says new text line 2 line 3 versus get real big, that does not work, so we gotta fix that. The countdown on seconds remaining doesn't work, but I think that's because we just commented it out. Right. And then lastly, the hover tooltips are on by default, but I think we can just turn them off by default. I think we probably just turned them on and forgot to turn them off. So I think we can fix all those in one pass, hopefully. Let's see here. We've got... Not that. So buff UI display, hover tooltip, correctamundo should be off by default. Apply that. What we're gonna do is take this background and let's switch from the rounded blue to the full blue, and then let's bring in the icon. Something like that. So then when our time remaining counts down, we'll see, even if the icon has a full non-transparent background, let me try that. We'll say like chisel. So now time remaining, it's still pretty subtle actually. So let's do like have like a nice white, you know, or even just like a border, something very flat. Let's just scroll through, see what we got. Got a lot of random stuff, you know. That's could be a default buff icon actually. What was it called? It's called 1. We're not gonna find that again. Let's see. Skip over all these icons actually. Scrolling on down. We're doing great. Lots and lots of icons. I think they're all still just images for like images and stuff. We do have some generated stuff. We just really need like something flat that lets us get these edges we want. I mean, we can just put like a literal white image in if we want. Let's see here. You know, this one has good color. We will swap it out for something later. We'll use this for now. There you go. There it is. So now, when our time remaining counts down, even on items that have the full background, we will have that effect, which I think is way better. Way more noticeable. We good to go. Alright, so let's get our icon here back to nothing, or we'll use that nice little 1 that we found if we can. We overshot it. It's one of these. There it is. I think we'll set that as the default too on our UI references. So default buff icon, let's grab the same. Coolio. What else were we fixing? That might have been it. We kind of wanted to move the buff bar around, but I think I'll just move it down a little bit. It's gonna overlap with some stuff, I think. We'll move it around later. Let's see where we're at, because I think things will look good now. I feel like we are forgetting something, but we'll come back to it. See what we got. All right, a growth potion. Well, they're definitely not ticking down. Oh, right, the description text. That's what we needed. Because input string is not in a correct format, which we got again when we brought this back. Interesting. I wonder, surely the order of operations there doesn't, wait, why is this? To read only span of characters? Dot parse? Just raw casting, I guess. Round to int, that's what we want. Cool. So let's use that up here. Dot toString. And that's going to be time remain effect dot duration. Cool, cool, cool. And then this guy, effect display override. I'm curious why this isn't. Oh, it is triggering, but we're just never setting this. I see. So we want to say buff effect our text is our custom effect line. Cool, cool, cool. And we should be good to go now. But I do want to, let's take off those sprite overrides. I want to default back to the image of the icon. Maybe that's not as easy as I think it'll be because we're not even passing the image through, we're just passing the effect through. So yeah, maybe we won't do that, but let's go just do some better images here. So way up here, let's find something that is getting real big. Sure, that looks great. And then something that is going fast. And we'll generate all these images later, so they're not going to have transparency anyway. So that's going to be fast. So hopefully this will generate our move speed now. This will say grow to a giant size. Let's try that. So now, drink our growth potion, cross our fingers and pray maybe. They look like they're ticking down. We still need a better background image, I think. And we could probably even pull in those icons even further. But at least they're ticking down. They say 1 second remaining, 0 seconds remaining. So you can see, okay. If you drink multiple, you get lots of buffs. Good. So you'll be able to see like, oh, it's about to stop. You're about to get a lot smaller because it's disappearing. Okay, it's working. You can hover over to read. Oh right, we need to double check. 1.3 move speed, sure. We gotta clean up the text a little bit, but that's fine. Seems like it's working. What happens when we overflow? Nothing good. Okay. That's fine. I wanna see if it'll overlap with stuff when we're like harvesting. So if we get a bunch of these and I don't use the growth potion on it. Okay, yeah, it's definitely overlapping. So we might move it like up here, I think. And then that'll let it stretch across the whole screen too, which I think will be nice. We don't have any UI up there right now. We were planning on putting like health and mana and stuff, but might move that down here anyway. So we'll move that. And then maybe we'll polish it up a little bit, do some little effects to like animate coming in and out or something. But other than that, buff icons look like they're working. Just get them a little polished up and they'll be good to go. Alright, so buff bar. We want to move, but let's throw in some buffs so we can actually see what we're working with. So this guy's got a lot of buffs. Cool. Makes sense. So let's move these up yonder. Fun fact, this song is from the best game of all time. Chrono Trigger. And I will die on that hill. Cool. So let's also stretch this all the way across the screen. Center, Y. Huh. Oh, right, because it is actually stretched across the screen. They just start on the left. That makes sense. Alright, so let's put it up here then. Give it a little bit of padding. So like left of 20. Top of, well, let's say minus 48, which means this needs to be 24. So now it'll stretch all the way across the screen. Coolio, coolio. We do need to decrease the width a little bit, I think, because we moved it to the right. So, I mean, it's going to overflow anyway, I guess. So we don't need to worry too much about that. But cool. Now we have buff effects. Let's go ahead and commit that real fast. Effects now display a buff when they take effect on the player. Cool. Let's make them look a little nicer, I think. So what we want to do is, do we have anything for tweening already in here? Or we've just been lerping, I think. I think we have an asset for doing tweens, but it is not in this project. So what we're gonna do is just a little bit of polish. I think let's put a frame on top of the icon to delineate it a little bit better from this outside border. So we've got something like this. Let's also put a frame on top of this to kind of complete that look. UI image frame, let's call this frame. Let's stretch it so we can actually see how it's looking. Yeah, I like that a lot better because we'll see that it's gonna feel a lot nicer. Okay. So I think the other effect that we want is, instead of just straight up destroying it, what we'll do, it'd be nice to make it smaller, but what I worry is going to happen is it's going to, let's see, how can I display this? If we've got a buff icon here, we can make it smaller like this when it goes away. Just kind of poof it out like that. However, if we have a bunch of them and this guy gets smaller, okay, the other ones don't rescale. I was worried it would move over with how we've set up our horizontal layout group, but I mean, that looks nice. We'll just have it like disappear out like that. So let's set up that iEnumerator coroutine. Scale out to nothing. Over time. Float time until destruction is, let's say let's do half a second. So it's nice and snappy. So time remaining, until the time remaining is, we're just scaling down the local scale of that ratio and then yield back to the main thread so we don't block. And then finally, that's not at all what we want. We want destroy this game object. Cool, cool, cool. And so now instead of destroying it here, we can say start coroutine, scale out to nothing over time. I think that'll work just fine. Let's find out. Let's get rid of these. And then let's also test some other items. Since I've just been testing the same item, I want to make sure that I didn't overlook something and it only works for that for some reason. Because the other ones aren't going to have like images on the effects, and they might be a little bit different. So let's see what we got. Alright, so we have growth potion, shrink potion, blood mushroom. Think will work. Any other consumables? Fire resist potion, cold resist potion. Anything else we can eat? Let's put this on. Let's run over to campfire. Maybe make some cooked apples or something. Maybe we can eat those and have an effect. See what we get. Cooked apple. Does it have an effect? Plus 5 current health. Sure. Good enough. Alright, so if we drink growth potion, buffs are now up here with the borders. That looks so much nicer, but we do need to make the tooltip beneath it now. Yeah, that looks way better, I'd say. And the little zoom out is really nice too. If we drink, say, blood mushroom. Okay, I had 2 buffs. One of them applied and then went away. I'm not sure what the other one was because the tooltips aren't it, but you know, 1 buff, 1 buff. And those are, I guess, 10 minutes, so okay, it's counting down. It's good, it's good. Cooked apple. Okay, so current health. Oh, that's what it is. I mean, obviously that just heals you, so shouldn't really apply a buff. But when we did this, and it has current health and max health. Alright, so actually, I remember saying earlier that we would only call this if the duration was greater than 0 seconds. I don't think that we ever even checked that here. So we want to say if effect.duration in seconds is greater than 0, that's when we want to create this buff icon. Otherwise, just do the effect instantly or permanently, like you don't need a buff for it. Also, let's fix that tooltip, but otherwise things are looking good. I do want to make this a little bit snappier, I think. Maybe like 0.3 seconds to scale out. I do love how these buffs look though. They look really nice, I think. And we worked really hard on the system that lets items generate effects in the game, so it's nice to have the little bit of oomph, the visual display. Right, hover tooltip is now gonna be beneath it. So let's set our pivot point on the opposite side and move it down. And you know what, let's also kind of align it like this, because we're gonna have them in the top left of the screen. So maybe we even connect it. Maybe. And then also I think maybe let's bring in this icon just a tiny bit more. Just to get more of that frame. We don't really need the image as much as we need the glanceable duration. Okay, so that should all be good. What we could do is also have a enumerator scale into existence. Do that real fast, where we literally just do the opposite. Time until fully grown. Let's do that like 0.1 seconds, so it's just a nice little whoop. Time remaining is, wait, fully grown. While time remaining is blah blah blah. Let's regenerate this because I think it's backwards now. Yeah, 1 minus that. And then we just want to make sure that transform.local scale is vector 3.1 at the end, just in case there's like any rounding issues with the math in the loop. Set it to the actual value. So what we can do now is say, let's start transform.local scale is equal to vector 3.0 and then scale into existence. So now we should get a nice little animation when you first get it that kind of scales it in super fast, and then when it goes away you get the opposite effect but a little bit slower, so you can kind of enjoy it a little bit more. Let's see what we got. Oh, it already ran. Alright. So now let's test out our blood mushroom, which did have 2 buffs. Should only have 1 now. That was an animation for sure. We still need to disable that tooltip by default though. But you know, I don't hate that effect that grows too much on accident. So if we did maybe a shrink potion, grows in. Yeah, that looks really good actually. I like that. Let's fix this tooltip real fast so we can get the full experience. Just turn that off by default. And you know, let's be a little bit safer here and just say if hover tooltip container is not equal to null and hover tooltip container.activeSelf is false, then we will disable it on start. A little bit of overhead when we could just keep it disabled in the actual game, but you know, we've already had this issue a few times, so we can always optimize it out later. Alright, full experience, here we go. So we've got growth potion, shrink potion, blood mushroom, cold resistance, fire resistance. Let's go see if we can get a cooked apple again with some effect. Maybe we will. Roasted apple. No effect on it. You know what? We should probably test no effect. So we drink growth potion. Yeah, we get some buffs. Looks great. Does look like it's counting down correctly. Technically it's going to say 1 second remaining, which pains me to see, but I think it's fine for now. We do get the 0 seconds remaining just briefly, which is nice. And we could color the... You know what, maybe we should do like an orange or something for the border, just so it stands out a little nicer. But the default on buffs that don't have an image looks great. Items that do an instant effect and also a persistent effect seem like they're working. Ooh, oh right, we need to go fix all the actual item data, because they all say gain 5 strength for 30 seconds. That's just a problem with the data. But I like the little like bounce in effect. We could even bounce in more, but I think it's a good amount right now. We don't want to overdo it. And then when they go away, they zoom out like that. That's really nice. Okay. So buffs are looking good, I'd say. And we could have something similar for like equipment to like give you some sort of permanent buff that you see, but I don't think we need that. I think just having it in your stat panel will make sense. Oof, I kind of hate that FOV. Alright, well, I would say buffs look good. Maybe we could implement 1 or 2 buffs that we've been meaning to add in. Just kind of round out the stream. We've just hit the point where I would have started streaming, so we might get a few friendly faces in here in a moment. But I did want to start a little earlier today, so I could also end a little earlier today. But you know, we finished what we were working on, but let's do something small. Let's add a little bit more in. So let's just say polish up. How buffs look? Looks good to me. And then we've got some buffs in here that we've been meaning to implement. So maybe the harvest speed and harvest fortune makes sense to add now. That's just how fast, like when you go to use that apple on the campfire, for example, you're getting a cooked apple every second. If you increase your harvest speed, you get a cooked apple every 0.7 seconds or something. If you increase your harvest fortune, you're getting 2 cooked apples every second. So those are 2 that we want to add. Let's maybe do those 2 and then see where we're at. So let's close out all our stuff so we can focus. But let's take another effect handler just to remind ourselves how we do it. So we inherit from abstract effect handler, we implement apply effect, remove effect. Cool. All of the things that we've added so far as effects just directly manipulate properties that already exist in the game data. But for harvesting stuff, what we're going to need to do is basically we've got a stats container where we're going to need to store some stuff that says like how much of an effect they'll have, and then wherever we say do the harvesting, we'll need to go check in that stats container and just get the multiplier, really. Let's see. So we will do that in a sec. Let me get a well-deserved drink and think about how I want to approach this real fast. I'll throw this little down here. Alrighty, so let's take a quick look at how we harvest. So we've got our generic interactable world object script that exists on all objects in the world. And when a player interacts with them, we get the player's current item, do some stuff, and then interact with that object. So obviously harvest speed and fortune don't apply to like pouring consumables on trees to make them bigger or smaller. Should only apply with interacting with tools. And there's a branch for whether we have a recipe for what happens when you use, say, a chisel on a tree, or we don't have a recipe and we need to generate one. We can't really speed that up because it's all the AI stuff under the hood, but when we do know what you get, that's where we can play around with how fast it is. We can do like a little mini game, like a rhythm game for that critical harvest thing that we have where it'll speed up when you hit the space bar at the right time. So in here, that's where we're going to start harvesting. Let's take a look at how we do that so we can find out where we'll stick our multiplier in, and then we'll rig up a multiplier that the consumable will modify. So if we have our recipe, we start playing our animation, we show our tutorial, and we start our interaction with an object. So let's trace that through. Begin interaction with. So here we set our fill amount to 0, and then we start our coroutine that basically just fills that bar up, and then when the bar is full, we get the item. So here's our loop for filling up the bar. While it's still filling up, then fill it up. So we have some code for our needs a better name, but the critical harvest thing, what the heck is this? Critical harvest thing, which isn't totally correct right now, so we're gonna ignore that. But I'm pretty sure right here, all we need to do is insert a multiplier in so it fills faster. And I think there's two ways we can do it. Oh, I thought the previous song had like a lawnmower sound in it. No, it's just somebody mowing the lawn next door. I was like, why would somebody put a lawnmower sound in their song? That's fine. So what we can do is either one, we could modify the time to fill. That might be the simplest way, where we have a base harvest time in seconds on each object. So like campfire is 1 second, trees are 3 seconds, something else is 4 seconds, etc. We could just multiply that by some multiplier here. Multiplier for like how fast you harvest. So if you harvest in 0.75 or in 75% of the time, then you just do something like that. Your time to fill is 75% of the normal. It fills that much faster. That's probably what we'll end up doing. Alternatively, we could do it in the loop where this fill amount gets multiplied in by the multiplier. But I'm saying that out loud and realizing I don't think that is correct. So we're just going to do it here. So what we're going to do is say float player harvest time multiplier. Multiplier is, let's say it's 1 by default. And all we're going to do is, let's go over to the stats container. We have a dictionary of stat modifiers and their values. So a stat modifier can be any of the stats that items can modify, obviously. One of them will be, and is now, harvest speed, and also harvest. You know, I was going to say fortune because I couldn't think of a better name, and that's what it's called in Minecraft, but yield makes so much more sense. So now we've got harvest speed, harvest yield. So all we need to do now that those stats can be modified on the player, we can get them to start at 1. So we'll say current stat value, item effect, stat modifier dot harvest speed is 1f, and harvest yield is also 1. So they're just multipliers. And just trace through. Forgot where we were. So here, begin interaction with, start the coroutine. Here. So we can get our multiplier just from player database dot instance dot stats base stats dot get base stat 4 harvest speed, and then do we have a way to pass defaults on this? Nah, let's say float default if not set. So we'll say if current stat value dot contains key stat to modify, then return that, else return default if not set. Easy peas. So now here we can say get the harvest speed if there's not one set it to 0. And all we need to do now, math-wise, is multiply that in. Player harvest time multiplier. So that technically works. So in order to get that to have an effect, like right now it's just multiplying by 1 because items can't change it quite yet. We just need to implement the harvest speed effect where it will subtract from this multiplier. So 25% faster harvest speed is 1 minus 0.25. So you'll get 0.75, and then the time to fill each bar is 0.75 of the original 1 effectively. Math. Cool, so we'll do that. We are going to grab this guy, promote him out of next to implement, and then let's rename him and implement him. When the project is rebuilt. Effect handler, Coolio. Harvest speed effect handler. You inherit from, what did I change here? Abstract effect handler. Let's implement that. So we now have an apply effect, a remove effect. And all those are gonna do is change the player's stat container that we just set up. So let's create those items just so we have something to test with. Let's go ahead and say data, starting items, consumables, let's say harvester potion. Sure. Make it a consumable. Give it a nice hoe. Or just a generic potion for now. There we go, that'll do. Harvest 25% faster. So we will give it an effect, say super harvest. We'll rename all this later. Stat to modify is harvest speed. We will subtract 0.5. Is that how, like, we can set this up to work and do the math however we want, but maybe we want to do like multiplicative divide by 25. Is that 1 divided by 25. 1 divided by 0.25. No. 1 times 0.25. Oh, I guess 1 times anything is going to be it. We'll say multiply by 75. But we really want to structure it so when we create the item tooltip from this effect, it makes sense to the player. So we'll say subtract. We will say for 30 seconds, you will harvest 50% faster. And I think this is one of those stats that's always going to be multiplicative, so we don't need like a flag of whether it's a percent or not. So let's just do this. Let's do our potion icon, and let's rig this up to say well, do the effect, I guess. So we want to say if target is the player, because it's not really going to make sense to pour on like objects. Like you're not going to pour this on a tree to make that tree harvest things faster. I guess you could like pour it on a tree to make harvesting from that tree faster, but there's not really a point to do that instead of pouring it on yourself or drinking it yourself. But you know what, we'll leave it open to apply the effect to the player when only harvesting from that object, I guess. So in the case that you use this consumable on something else instead of yourself. So here, to use it on yourself, the thing that we are updating is, let's say, internal void multiply base stat by, let's say that, multiplier, cool. We do technically need to do handle stat isn't set yet. So like if it doesn't exist yet, you're not going to get anything. But that's an error for another day. We're going to say player database dot instance dot base stats dot multiply base stat by, and we don't want value, we want modifier value. So this is how we manipulate it. The math is wrong because this is going to multiply it by 50 right now. So you would do 50 times faster. You know, we could just say like 2 times faster. So that's way simpler than what I was about to do. But we still do need to do a little manipulation, because if we multiply that base stat by 2, it'll actually take twice as long to harvest one. So we want to do 1 over that. And I think that'll do it. Let's kind of compare. We set up a coroutine to remove the effect. We don't need to do any lerping on this. We'll just make it instantly take effect. The opposite, so how we remove it, is going to be basically the same, except instead of multiplying by 1 over, we're going to multiply by that number back, which cancels each other out. and you'll get back the original number. But we do need to start a coroutine to trigger this after the effect's duration is up. So let's just copy over how we did that. Maybe we don't need to do that ourselves. Apply consumable effect should do that for us, which is much nicer. We can just write the logic for how to apply it, how to remove it. Okay, so will this just work? Maybe. We're gonna find out. I mean, I feel like it shouldn't, but, you know, maybe it will. One way to find out, I guess, we do need to add it to the player's starting inventory so we can test it. So instead of some Air Jordans, let's give them a Harvester potion, and we need to add that to the item database real fast so it knows how to find those stats, but then we can test. We'll play and roll with it. Item database, Harvester potion, add that bad boy in. Cool, cool, cool. Let's play. Alrighty, so Harvester potion is here. Cool. Let's drink one of these, just make sure we didn't break anything. Buffs still work, everything looks good. Let's run outside or run to a tree. Let's get a little baseline. Well, Patrick, hello, how goes the game? Hey, how's it going? Game's going good. We got some really nice little buff icons this week. We're just kind of adding a little bit more now, but last week we worked on like making items actually do things, so now we've got some nice little buff icons that show up, count down until the effect goes away. They got little animations when they come in, they got little animations when they leave. Oh, Nightbot. I'm so sorry he deleted that message. Yo, you're totally fine. Here's some caps for you. That's the message Patrick sent. I'm gonna need to fix those moderation settings. That ain't it. But that's awesome. Sorry about that. But yeah, we did all that last week, but it was a little weird that you could just drink a ton of them, and then especially like you wouldn't know when they would stop taking effects. So you'd be like sipping on them, and then sometimes you'd get a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, because like when you start, they start going away. If you're drinking more, you're going to be shrinking a lot more. You want to be able to see, obviously, buffs. You know that. But we got these nice buff icons this week. And now we're implementing a few more stats that items can have. So we've got this pool of stats that when we generate new items, they can pull from whatever's relevant. And what we're adding in right now is harvest speed, which I am about to test. Realizing we are a little bit smaller than we should be. So maybe there's a bug in overlapping these. But I want to get just kind of a baseline for harvest speed so we can see if it's going to be faster. Well, what did we break? So our new multiplier object reference not set to an instance of an object. that would tell me that like this isn't set or base stats isn't set. Oh, you know what? Base stats might not be set. Does your size affect your stats at all? We were talking about this earlier. For like, right now it doesn't. It affects your collider, and conveniently some of the items that affect your size also manipulate like your movement speed and I think one or two other things just to make you like look like you're bigger. But somebody suggested earlier that like when you're smaller, maybe potions have more enhanced effects, or like maybe when you're bigger you need to drink more to get more effects. I think there's some fun stuff to do there, because I think size isn't really an affix that is used for anything other than visuals in a lot of games. So I do think it would be really cool to affect like your stats. Maybe you get like a multiplier on all your stats if you're bigger. If there were like a hunger system in the game, you would get hungry faster. Like something like that would be really cool to add in, I think. But right now it doesn't really affect your size or your stats. I want to add in a few places in the world where like you either need to be small enough to get in, or like big enough to get in or through or over or something. But right now it doesn't really. It's a very fun visual thing, and that's it. I didn't know if it would interfere with what you were trying to test just now, but yeah, that all makes sense. Could be cool to see that implemented. Yeah, it would be really cool. I think, yeah, I don't know yet what we want to do with the size, but we definitely want to do something. So if you got any ideas, I'm all ears for sure. I think a stat multiplier makes a lot of sense, especially if you could find some way to like maybe your stats get some sort of multiplier, but there's also some sort of downside for being so big. So you need to decide like, do you want to be big and strong, but maybe, I don't know, you're slower or something? Or do you want to be small and quick, but you're weaker? Something like that could be really fun. Let me double check and make sure that my player stats container should be set. Don't need to mess with the prefab that much, but we'll apply what we got. I do really like if you're oversized, it takes more potions to get the effect to work. Yeah, me too. I don't know if it would be like as fun. But I mean, you can make potions pretty easily. I think it's a really like fun and surprising mechanic. And so definitely going to play with it. But I do like the idea of like having those sorts of effects, because I mean the whole game is about crafting like items that let you do whatever you want, or like give you a lot of choice. And we already have equipment that makes you permanently bigger or permanently smaller, so it would make a lot of sense to have those sorts of effects. I like that. It's very Alice in Wonderlandy almost. I'm wondering if the base stats is actually not set, because where are you at? Oh, it's on the player database. Base stats not set. Son of a gun, how did we know? Base stats. Obviously the fun factor always takes precedent, for sure. You would just have to play test on down the road. Yeah, I mean, I love playtesting, so yeah, I think we'll definitely do something. It's just, we want to play around, and we're going to have a demo up on Steam somewhat soon. We want to get all this like a little bit further on, more in a state where people can just like play with all our systems. So yeah, it'll be really fun. I think we can add in stuff like that, and I have no qualms with adding like downsides. Like if you want to be really small but it takes more potions, sure, you are really big but it takes more potions, more power to you. If you want to be really small but all your potions are just insanely ridiculous, that sounds fun too. Just curious, how many stats are there? We are adding them in now. There aren't too many. We don't have like the character sheet stats in yet, like strength, agility, dexterity, intelligence, all that stuff that you would use for like requirements on equipping stuff. We are adding a few stats for like your tool belt size. Let me go into the game. Your tool belt size is one. Like how quickly you harvest is one. Your inventory size, your jump height, your scale, your movement speed. Like some of these really basic proof of concept pieces are what we've added in so far. But like notably, we don't have any combat in the game yet because we've been focused on all these like crafting systems and like NPC systems. So we are planning on having combat. Then I think that's when a lot of the like fun, flashy stats are going to come in. But until we have those, I didn't want to add in stats that do nothing, but I think that's going to be fun. I think do I need to rebake that nav mesh? There was some weird, maybe not. Let's see here. Let's try this again. I know you have skills in the game too. Yes. Yeah, we're still fleshing all those out too. We've got a few in. They're more placeholdery right now, but this last week we've been talking a lot through the design of like how we want the game loop to feel. And I mean, at the core, the loop of this game is you go collect items, you craft items, you give those items to NPCs to solve their problems. Like that's what you do in the game. There's a lot of side stuff you can do, like crafting items for yourself so you can get around the world easier, or like we're going to add in more fun stuff for you to do, like farming and fishing and obviously all the like combat hunting stuff. But don't have a lot of them in yet, really. But we are planning on kind of adjusting that game loop to tying the NPCs in town a lot closer to stats and tying fulfilling quests into like new crafting workbenches related to those stats. So maybe like each time you do a quest for the blacksmith, you get a new, like you get access to the anvil, and then you get access to a furnace, and then you get access to like a tempering station or something. Like right now you learn a few recipes of like stuff that you can craft at the anvil, but I think it'd be fun to get access to more mechanics too as you progress. But yeah, stats are very much like a placeholder right now. We're still working on them, but I think they're about to become a lot more core to the game loop. I see this tree is not on the ground. All right, so this is a nice little baseline for how long it takes to harvest. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4. So about 4 seconds. So we should get about 2 seconds if we drink this, hopefully. 2 times harvest speed. Oh, right, we're pouring it on the tree. That seems faster. Is it? I don't know if it's twice as fast. Let's drink, I mean, my math might just be wrong, but let's drink a ton of them. Maybe it'll be really fast. Nope, it looks about the same to me. Interesting. So either this isn't manipulating the harvest speed of the character correctly, or it is manipulating the harvest speed correctly and we're just not using that in the coroutine correctly. So let's test for both of those. So what we're going to do is let's add some little logs. Do you expect combat to be about the same as, say, something like in Stardew Valley, where it's not the main focus, but rather just something you can do? So think, I mean, one of the main reasons we haven't really prioritized combat so far is we don't really know what to do with it, because we know we want to make it different. Like, the whole focus of the game so far has been like, we have this really cool tech that we've built that allows us to do new things that games couldn't do, like crafting items, talking to NPCs, generating dynamic quests, like using any item on any object, etc., etc. So I think there are opportunities for that sort of like interesting change in combat, but I don't know yet what we want to do. But I think from like the game design perspective, I do think that it's not going to be the main focus. I think it's going to be an option, kind of like in Stardew Valley, or like one of my big original inspirations was RuneScape, where you can play RuneScape and go kill monsters for items, and you level up and you can kill stronger and stronger monsters and so on. But you could also just start the game and like be a woodcutter and like cut wood, sell that wood, make money, like buy new tools. Maybe you want to do some fishing. There's lots of non-combat stuff you can do, and the two systems kind of feed back and forth into each other. Like, if you make a bunch of money from fishing, you could then buy better armor to like get jump started in combat. Or if you then go kill a bunch of stuff with combat, you can use that money to like set yourself up to start learning a new skill or something. Like, it's more of a back and forth, like it's an option for scaling versus the main focus. But we're still trying to figure out what we want to do for like making it different. And I think I was talking to Enomoth earlier in the chat. We both were talking about like wizard games, and I really like games where you can kind of craft your own spells. And so I don't know if there might be something in there where we give the player the opportunity to like create spells or create like their own abilities for combat or something like that, where obviously combat is very fast paced, so you can't make a lot of you can make strategic decisions like moment to moment, but I really like games with a good balance of a lot of strategy between battles. So like, I play a lot of RPGs where you go boss rush or whatever, and then you're done with that and you go back to town and you strategize around who's in your party, what you have equipped, like your party composition, all that jazz, where it's technically part of combat, but it's very laid back pace and very like strategy heavy, versus in combat it gets a lot more action based. And I think that's probably the note that we will move towards, of like, in town maybe you're crafting new spells or new abilities or something, and then you go out into the world, into combat, and it is very action based, but you're using these things that you've made, and so you've kind of crafted your own like combat style. Like, that's a very hand wavy answer, and I don't know if we'll want to do that versus like be able to do that, but it would be interesting to kind of explore a lot of possibilities for how we can do an interesting combat system. We did a lot of prototypes before this game, testing out a lot of the different systems. Like, this was just our crafting and NPC system. This was like a questing system and some bit of NPCs. This was also a bit of questing. We haven't really prototyped a lot of combat, so it'd be interesting to do some like game jams or something and see what feels good, really. I went on a little bit of a ramble. Let me catch up on this chat. That makes total sense. That was me every time I played. Combat was nice, but I always enjoyed leveling up the other skills more, even though it was virtually mindless. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the the masterpiece of it, of like, you can choose how much of your mind you want to dedicate. Like, if you just want to watch some Netflix and throw it up on a second screen and like cut logs, like click every 15 seconds or something for hours at a time, like you're still making progress in the game. But importantly, like, you're collecting resources that, when you have the opportunity and the willingness to like dedicate your brain to like figure out hard decisions, what you want to do, all that jazz, you have all those resources then for doing that. It's kind of the same like game loop as Minecraft. Even like, a lot of times I play Minecraft with my wife and some friends, and I'll just get on, and 3 or 4 hours I'm literally just like holding down the mouse button and mining everything in sight, because I'm just collecting resources. And then when I'm more like in the zone, I'll look at what all I have, I'll go through all my chests and be like, oh, okay, I have a lot of granite, I have a lot of oak wood, I've got a lot of this and that and this. I think I should make a barn that uses a granite roof and like this kind of wood for detailing. And so it's a lot more decision based, that is enabled by those like mindless time periods. And I think that's a really good like balance to letting you play the game however you want, for like respecting the player's time. Oh, for sure. I think going the crafting spells route would be very cool. I think you're doing yourself a justice, though, in focusing on the majority of the game loop being the crafting and harvesting. Thank you. I hope so. I mean, anybody can make an open world game and add in some enemies and like add some spells and like weapons and stuff, and you click on enemies and you fight them, they drop items. Like, you can literally go to the Unity asset store, and I mean, if you have the money, you spend $200 on an asset that is literally all of that already in the game for you, and you just create the items, create the weapons, create the stats, all that jazz. Like, it's not new. And so I'm not super excited about just making combat for the sake of combat. Like, if I can't figure out how combat feels good in this game, and if the other Andrew can't figure out how this combat feels good, like, I'm totally fine to make a cozy little like town relationship game where you're just managing your relationships with people in town, crafting them items, just like the cozy vibe, the therapeutic vibe, as one might say. Like, I mean, everybody says don't make an open world RPG for your first game. I would like to say that this isn't necessarily my first game, but first on Steam at least. But when the reason they say don't make an open world RPG is because there's just so much to do, and the scope creep gets out of control insanely easily. And so obviously you're going to add like combat for the sake of combat, or skills for the sake of skills. Like, I'm trying to limit what we're adding in, and we're trying to think through, like, does this serve the game loop, and does this serve the vibe that we want to give the player? And I hope that the crafting and harvesting systems do. I think that has worked really well so far, because I mean, I find myself just like getting distracted and crafting items all the time just to see what I get. So I think that's really fun. I think the next step with that is giving all of the items a purpose in the world. So, like, I mean, right now, I wouldn't want to load into the game and just spend hours cutting logs. Like, I could do it, and I could have 3 or 4 different tools that give me different kinds of logs, and I could collect them all and put them in my stash, but right now there's nothing to do with them, really. Like, I only need a couple logs to craft one of whatever item I think would be nice for NPCs to have. But there's no real purpose to collect like thousands of logs. So I think combat is a good solution to giving a purpose. But I'm also trying to think through some other other ways to give item purposes, really, and we're struggling a little bit, but I think we'll get there. I think we've got a great base, and it is very empty world feeling, but it is a good base to build on, and I think we have a lot of ideas, and hopefully they piece in together. Just very therapeutic in a way. Yeah, I mean, that is the cozy game vibe, I think. I love cozy games. I love strategy games. So if I could get a cozy strategy game, I don't know any games that I would describe that way, but I mean, that'd be real nice. At least you know the feeling that you're wanting to invoke into the player. Yeah. I hope so. I think... I mean, we're really making a game for ourselves, so we are relying a lot on feedback and opinions and getting people playing stuff and trying it out to kind of get a lot more of that input of oh yeah, this is fun, but it'd be more fun if I could do this, because we want to make that very open world choice-based game. So feedback is great, suggestions are great. At least you have at least one other person helping you out too, which really helps with the larger project. Yes, absolutely. As long as you're constantly learning something new with the project, I think it's positive. That's such a good way to look at it, and I completely agree. My background is in programming and AI, but more writing and storytelling. And the other Andrew on the team is very much... I mean, he's AI and programming as well, but he's mathematician whiz. I throw all the math at him. He's got a lot of other strengths as well, like the business side and lots more connections that I don't have, and a lot of good ideas from different genres of games that I don't play. So it's been really fun to learn a lot of that stuff through him, and it's also been really nice. One of the things in the game is, I mean, the NPCs, obviously. And I kind of built this little prototype that lets you, talk to them, generates a conversation with them. It generates suggested responses for you. You can click on one and it'll generate what you say, and then it generates what they say in response. You can give them items, and the AI engine under the hood determines whether that item solves their problem, and so on. It works, but he's been hard at work for probably, over a month now, working on this really cool AI system that gives them all individual brains and opinions about each other, and facts that they can reference, facts that they learn from each other, so they can walk around town and talk to each other and learn new things, and then they can go talk to somebody else and tell that thing to them. One of the original research papers that we read and we were yeah, we need to make a game studio, was this paper where it was just a bunch of individual AI agents simulated in a town, and all they had was little knowledge base factoid reserves that they each had, and they could talk to each other, so they would learn things from talking to each other. And they ran this simulation for however long, and they saw a bunch of emergent behavior, which is super, super cool. And they saw that one of the NPCs had a fact that they started with of their birthday was next week. And so they mentioned that to another NPC who learned that NPC's birthday was next week. That NPC then went and talked to somebody else and mentioned that person's NPC or that person's birthday was next week. So that spread a little bit around town. But then one of them mentioned we should plan a birthday party for that person. And so that little fact spread around the town, and they all... Oh, you got another one. I'm so sorry. That's so wild. Let me paste in chat. That factoid spread around town, and they all decided to throw a birthday party And the way this was all set up was like they could decide where they wanted to go in town, at what time, and like what they wanted to do, who they wanted to talk to, and so on. And they all planned to throw a birthday party at this time, at this place, for this NPC, just because one of them mentioned that that NPC was having a birthday party soon. And they all showed up and like had a big, I mean, they didn't, there was no like game logic to like throw a party, but they all showed up at the same time, same place, all talked to each other. And that was wild. So we were like, let's build that in a game. I don't know about the rest yet, but that is wild. Like you put a player in that situation and then the player offhandedly mentions to like this blacksmith that like, oh yeah, there's a really magical fish in the lake nearby. I saw it, but I didn't catch it. And so maybe tomorrow this NPC's walking around and mentions it to like a fisherman over on this side of town. And then that fisherman the next day decides like, oh, I'm going to go to the lake and fish. So you can like, it's really cool that the player can give this sort of, or have this sort of impact in the game without even realizing it. And so we've kind of baked that in a little bit where one of the things that we're going to do is like have them look at their inventory when they're deciding what they want to do for the day. So if this guy knows that he likes cooking and knows that he likes fishing, but he looks at his inventory and maybe I've bought his lemons and I've bought all of his other food, he's probably going to be like, I should go fishing today because I don't have anything to cook. And so this guy is going to walk over to the lake and just be fishing for the day. And so if the player is out in that direction, they'll see him there. They can talk to him. But like, that wasn't scripted. That wasn't coded. I think that's wild. Like, it's kind of the same vibe as like Stardew Valley, where they have the scripted schedule and they do stuff around town, but it's based on they wake up in the morning just like you do and they make the decisions. So you don't know where they're going to be, but you could also say something to them and absolutely change where they're going to be for the next day or two or however long. And they might say something to each other that changes what that person wants to do. So it's pretty wild. I'm really excited for his brain upgrades to be in the game. We're going to start working on putting them in probably this week or next. Probably might be a little while because he's prototyped it all in like Python and got it all working. But obviously we need to rewrite it in C# to get it into like the Unity format. But it's going to be so sick. And also like if you return to this guy, he knows what he previously talked to you about. So you get a little description of like a summary of the previous conversation. He's going to ask if you've made any progress. Like all this is generated from their memories, which is so cool. Yes, I keep getting distracted because I'm so excited about this. Let me catch up on chat again. Thank you again. Nice to have you here. So what if you, the game designer, wanted to put rare items in the world that you want the players to discover? How do you prevent players from just crafting that item instead of going out and discovering that item? So that is a great question. And I think it's going to be fine. Well, for one, I think it's actually really, really hard to craft the specific item that you want. Like it's pretty easy to say like, oh, this blacksmith says that when he touches metal, it turns into coal. And you're like, all right, I want to craft some gloves or like leather gloves, whatever. You can craft that pretty easily. But if you make an item that is like, here's an example of a rare item I've created. So we have an Eye of Madness, and it has a attribute that can't roll on regular items because it's absolutely ridiculous. It sets your camera to orthographic instead of perspective, which is silly. But technically, if you were able to craft an item named Eye of Madness, you would get this item because it exists in the item database. We use the item name as the key. Like, it would technically be fine. if you were to craft this item. And I think that would also be cool. Like, if the player accidentally were to craft this item and they'd never seen any item that had this effect before, they'd be like, what the heck did I just make? Like, that's absolutely bonkers. I've broken the camera because orthographic stuff is hard math. But I think that's fine. But I do think that there's ways to like mitigate that problem a little bit where like you can give it a really specific name, make it really, really hard to oh my gosh, you got banned. Hold on. Oh no, one sec. Oh no, how do I unban you? I don't know. Oh, let's see. Huh. One second. Let me also turn off Nightbot if I can. You see what I got over here. I'm so sorry. Spam protection. Disable. Excess caps. Excess symbols. You know, they'll do that too. You got any bans? Bans? Oh, timed out. Okay. I mean, let me see if I can untime you out, but I'm so glad you didn't actually just get properly banned. Let's see here. See what I got here. Now how the heck? Timed out. I see. You can time out for 1 second. Okay, let me try that. Okay, not currently banned. Alright, I hope you're fine. I've disabled all the Nightbot stuff. Welcome back. You should be good to chat again, but it deleted your messages. It's garbage. I'm gonna... Wow, that's so rude. Sorry about that. I've forgotten what I was talking about. Well, what was I talking about? Oh, right. Well, I don't know if you're back yet, but let me double check everything is good. I have remembered what I was talking about, and I will return to it momentarily. Just want to double check all these settings. I do enjoy that while this is happening, the boss music from Chrono Trigger is playing, because Twitch is the boss I'm fighting right now. Okay, I think we are good. I hope you're fine now. Let me check in on... it's all good. I've got you stuck in -1 seconds timeout. Let me try this again. Timeout. Patrick Duh 0. Can I? Oh my god. Timeout. Patrick Duh 1. Let's do 2 seconds. Maybe 2 seconds will work. Because it banned you for... it timed you out for 10 seconds when I tried to do 0 seconds. Alright, let's see if that worked. Hopefully. But I'm glad you didn't, like, get properly banned and kicked from the stream. It's very nice to have you here. I appreciate the chat. I'm checking the mod view for stuff, too. Okay, I had to refresh the page, but I'm back now. Awesome. Welcome back. Once again, sorry. I've just disabled the Nightbot stuff, the spam protection stuff, so you should be able to use all of the excess caps you want now. I cannot promise 100%, but I think you're fine. You know what? I'll even disable links for now, just so we're good. Yeah, he was getting real spicy. He's like, jackpot. Mute this guy. But yeah, you asked, how do you create cool items in the game and prevent players from just like crafting those items instead of finding them out in the world? Sorry to make you go through all that. No worries at all. Like, it's fun. I'm still pretty new to Twitch, so I'm sorry that I didn't immediately know how to just untime you out. Now I know. But I think it's fun to let players also craft the items, but I think it's also hard for them. Like, if I made an item in the game called the Philosopher's Stone, like, that is something I'm planning on doing and not doing any like crafting recipes for anything, but giving it a really cool effect. And maybe I'll hide that in the world, but maybe not. And if the players figure out how to craft a Philosopher's Stone or like a Fountain of Youth or something, like, I would say that's an achievement on their part. Like, it's easy to craft types of items like gloves and boots and stuff, but it's harder to craft like specifically named things, except for like some cases. But that's my thought on it. I think it'll be fine, like, unless it isn't. But we even have some systems over here, like I think this still works. Let me try. But like, this is a very open-ended way to craft, where if I were to say, put in a harvester potion and say, please bless this potion to give me 10 times harvest speed because I love you, deity. And I make this prayer and I offer this item. Like, it's gonna, if it works, looks like it isn't gonna work. But it'll modify the item in certain ways, but it'll also have a certain name. It'll be named like Lilioon's Harvester Potion or something. So you could get names that way, but yeah. When I asked that question, I guess it was also assuming if you as a designer even wanted to restrict the player from doing that in the first place. Yeah, I mean, there might be some items that I want to make sure that they only find in the world. And I think it wouldn't be too hard to just like have a list of items that you wouldn't be able to craft. Like, we could literally just we've got a prompt here for item combining, or however we want to do it. Like, this is the prompt that we pass to the AI saying, here's all the like context, here's the ingredients, blah 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 blah. We could also add like, here's a list of items the player can't create, so choose a different name. And say like nuclear bomb or something. Like, we could do that, and then this prompt would never generate an item with that name. But I mean, it's a good question. I haven't really thought about hiding items in the world yet, but I mean, that makes the most sense, I would say, like giving players a reason to go out and explore the world. They're probably going to do it for items. So if it becomes too easy to craft those items, I probably will. But, you know, it could be fun either way. Nice little bit of choice. But I am planning on having like some Steam achievements or something if you craft Philosopher's Stone, I don't know, like Stone of Jordan, these like really famous items in the game. You could craft them because the AI knows about them. Maybe you get like a Steam achievement for found the Fountain of Youth, or found the Philosopher's Stone, or found XYZ. I think that'd be fun too. Um, I do want to try and make sure that our new affix that we just added, Harvest Speed, is working. I probably will wrap up the stream in like 30 minutes or like under an hour at least. I started a little bit earlier today because I wanted to end a little earlier. I feel like, oh, my shadow is just really off. That's why I look like I'm floating off the ground. But let's test this harvest speed a bit more. But I really appreciate the chat, Patrick. Thanks for all the good questions. It's always good having you here. Alright, so we're doing an item every second here, which should make it easy to see if there's a difference. So we're going to drink a few potions. A bunch of them even. And let's harvest again. Still looks the same. Alright. I'm one of those that I like asking on down the road types of questions, so I at least have them in the back of my mind while I'm working on other things. Never have the answer when I ask it, but it gives me plenty of time to sit on the question. Yeah, no, I think I do the exact same thing. I have to hold myself back sometimes when I'm talking about the game with Andrew, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm building this system for item effects right now, so we should probably keep in mind how that'll work when we have town management and custom workstations and everything, which are way, way far off. And the reality is probably don't need to keep those in mind, but it's so fun to keep them in mind because they're going to be really cool. But yeah, I appreciate that. Sorry, I haven't been in the stream in a long while. No worries, man. It's all good. We are here every week. I'm going to start a gaming stream every week sometime soon. I haven't decided the day yet, but should be fun. It's nice to have you here. All the other things that we don't even have implemented. Yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff, like even like simple things like the inventory screen. Like there's just so much little stuff. Like obviously the design. We want to have like even little things like different borders based on whether an item is a tool or a material, because that's important to know. Like we have weight and durability on items that aren't used at all. We have a lot of other stuff. Lots and lots of endless stream of stuff to do. Literally all of the skills. Like we have the skills, but you don't get skill XP for doing anything. Equipment, stats, everything. Like we've got such a big board of stuff that we want to do. Word of advice, the weekend tends to work the best as far as getting more viewers. Interesting. I don't think I've streamed. This guy's not on the ground either. I don't think I've streamed much on the weekend. I might give it a shot. That's a good idea. Maybe I'll stream this weekend. Who knows? I've been streaming Path of Exile. I'm very much addicted already. It's a very nice game so far. Yes. I am debugging. I am distracting myself. So let's make sure that we got applying harvest speed. Oh, interesting. We actually did not. Huh. So when we drank this potion, player, tag is correct. Let's add in a little bit of a no player found apply potion to. I'll keep an eye out then. I actually have never played Path of Exile, but I've had several people tell me I would like it. Yeah, it's very similar to Diablo, if you've played that, or like the old, like Baldur's Gate 1 or 2, Neverwinter Nights, like that sort of top-down action RPG where the loop is you kill monsters to get items that make you stronger so you can kill monsters faster, so you can get more items, etc. I love that loop. I had never played Path of Exile before. I started it last week, and I'm guessing like maybe some of my developer tools, like attaching to Unity or something, messed things up, because about 1 day into playing, I got disconnected and said I was permanently banned for the ban message of please contact support. And I contacted support, and they said, we cannot give you a reason, and we will not unban you. So I created a new account, and I've been playing, but every single day that I play, I'm like, is today the day that I'm going to get banned again? So far, no, but it is fun so far. So would recommend. It's also free, so if you have the time to spend, it really is. It's free for money, not free for your time. But yeah, I'll probably stream it again. I was playing with a friend. We started over new characters. I'm about halfway through the game now, I think, in terms of like the campaign. So I'm still not too far in. But you know what? Speaking of attaching to Unity, let's attach to Unity. Let's set some breakpoints. Why? Unable to find a corresponding location. Why? So let's set one when we apply the effect. Let's set one when we go to harvest and calculate that multiplier. Maybe one when we multiply the base stat, when we get the base stat. And maybe that'll be enough. It's a little suspicious that the breakpoints here won't be hit. Huh. But I guess we'll try it. See what we get. Just doing a little bit of debugging, I guess. It's been at least a week since I did the last effect, so I might just be missing something in the process. Alright, so when we drink this. Oh, interesting. Applying harvest speed effect to player. We did not get that. So this apply effect is never getting called. Huh. It is called from here, which we have a breakpoint on. So did this not get called? Did we find no handler found for type? Oh, we did. Okay. So effect handler. Oh, you know what? We never actually added it as a valid stat. That's the problem. Everything is working as intended. This absolutely needs to be an error, not a warning. So we want for stats, harvest speed. We'll use a harvest speed effect handler. There's probably a better way to do this, but that is fine. Let's try this again. At least you're not like me. I spent the whole last month working on a game jam, and now I have to figure out where to pick up my original project back up and get reacquainted with all of it. You know, sometimes taking a little bit of a break from the project is really nice to come back with new perspective. But yeah, I definitely vibe with taking a little bit of a break and just completely forgetting how everything works. It takes a moment to get back in, but I think the break is usually nice. Alright, we are back on it. It is nice though getting fresh eyes on where I am though, so I can critically figure out what I need to focus on next and what's missing. Absolutely. Yeah. That is, I mean, if you got the time to take a break, I love doing a little bit of a game jam and like trying something new, coming back to it. It's really nice. Alright, we are drinking our potion. It is now actually applying. Good, good, good. Let's continue on. Current stat, alright. Is modifying harvest speed by 0.5, sure. Because it's twice as fast, that makes sense. Alright, we're back in the game. Harvest speed is a buff that's happening. We knew that this was about 1 per second. Oh, we're applying the consumable to the campfire. Let's use something else. Still need to research it. It doesn't affect that, but surely. We definitely don't need that callback. So current stats getting called correctly. Harvest time multiplier is 0.5 because we're multiplying, cutting it in half, harvesting twice as fast. Let's jump forward a couple. Time to fill is 0.5, that's correct. Oh, we are going to be in this loop now, so let's kill that. Now that we know everything's being called correctly, clear those breakpoints. That still looks like... I mean, it does look faster, actually. This is about to expire. Let's see if it slows down. Oh yeah, that definitely slowed down. Alright. Let's go to a tree, which is more than 1 second. Let's research that, and then we'll just chug a bunch of potions and make it go fast. With that being said, I'm super excited about getting back into it, though. I've missed messing with it. This was my first successful game jam, and it was with 3 other random developers I've never met before. All around an amazing experience, and I learned a lot. Especially glad that I'm not a stranger to GitHub anymore, too. Still not super knowledgeable with it, but I'm somewhat comfortable with it. Absolutely. I used to do a lot of, like, coding competitions, and I would show up and just say, put me on a team of randos. I loved them so much. I mean, they're a little hit or miss, but it's so nice to, like, have a team of people that are just completely different and you can learn a lot from. That's awesome. What game did you make? What do you do? And you're going to continue on it, you said? Or are you going to just go back to your old project and leave it as the game jam? And also, I'm very, very familiar with Git and GitHub, so if you ever have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Discord. Happy to help with that. Alright, this is a pretty slow harvest speed. Cool. Alright, let's chug some potions. Oh, without breakpoints maybe. Let's chug some potions. We're getting fast now. It's gonna be so fast. Maybe even too fast, actually. Indeed, too fast. Okay. Well, you know, this is one of those examples of, did I give the player too much choice? Answer's probably no, but maybe multiplicative of 2x is a little bit too much. I think I'm just going back to my old project, but I think some of the team members may continue with it. It's a casual game revolving around musical chairs, but with power-ups. Oh, that's fun. It was a very short game, but definitely got the point across. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, those are always fun to come back to a long time later, too. Like, let's see here. The very first game jam that we did as a company was this guy, which is just like a retro beat 'em up. We didn't really know a lot, but our twist on it was once you beat people up for a bit, the cops come and you need to convince them that it wasn't actually you, it was somebody else. But we did this like over a year ago now, and every once in a while I'm very tempted to go back to it and just like take everything we've learned and like beef it up. So it's always fun to have those game jam submissions just sitting on the back burner where you can come back to them. It's pretty fun. I like it, and you can always come back to them. But it's also probably fun if you worked on a team. It might be a good way to reignite the team, reunite. Please tell me there's a link to it. There is. I think I cycled the API key out, but I could probably get a new build up. Sorry if this is loud. I don't know if my audio is coming through from Chrome, but we've got some hard like rock music. But I'm going to just play through until we get to the cops, because I think it'll error there because our API key needs updated, new build. But as you beat people up, you generate heat score. And the twist of this game jam was copycat. So you'll see that there's actually clones of you that show up and start beating people up, and they're generating heat for you as well. So you need to beat them up as well if you want to like control your heat. And when the police show up, how suspicious of you they are is determined by how high your heat score is. So there's a little bit of like back and forth, and it's not very clear at all. But yeah, it looks like it's just going to error here because it's not going to be able to generate the dialogue. But I think... Nope. There's no itch.io. If you go to chromagolem.com, here we go, website. If you go there and click on games, there's a link to it here. But I'll put a new build up on itch probably tonight. I've got some company here, so it might be tomorrow. But I'll post it on Discord when it's playable again. It's a fun little like 5-minute game, but when we first built that, we had a lot of people talking to us about how they were beating the cops by like convincing them that they were actually the cop and the person interrogating them was actually the person beating people up, and that they were going to take them to jail. There were some people that were like, yeah, I'm just out walking my dog. I saw that guy, he went that way, like you better go chase him. Lots of good stories for how people tricked the police. It was a fun little submission. We actually got 4th overall, so it was pretty fun, and it was our first like game as a team, so it was interesting to see like how our scores stacked up too. Obviously originality is pretty low there, but it was fun. I liked it. I think there were 45 submissions, so it was fun. I enjoyed it. But yeah, we actually got our harvest potion working, which means our new harvest speed affix works. It works a little bit too well when you've got a couple of those potions. Maybe some consumables we should limit how they stack, probably. Maybe like drinking this guy should refresh the duration instead of adding more and more and more. That's a little bit too fast. But I think that's something that I'll do another week. We probably are good on item effects right now. We've spent like 2 or 3 weeks on them, just on stream, getting them where they are. I would love to... Maybe we'll be able to craft something with harvest speed, like if we've got a hoe, maybe? Yeah, maybe a hoe, harvester potion. Will this give us a hoe with harvest speed, maybe? That'd be nice. That is also an affix that we probably need to go back and when we apply effects from whatever item is equipped right now. We haven't done that part yet, but when your tools have effects, you'll have those effects when it's equipped, or when it's selected at least. wondering if we might have errored because it's... What is this? Okay, well, I mean, this looks separate from what I was working on, so I might fix this off stream. I am tired and hungry, and my camera broke at the beginning of the stream, and I'm thirsty, and I've had a wonderful time chatting and coding and getting stuff done, and I love the little animations that I did for when these buffs appear and disappear, and I love the little countdown effect. I'm loving the game so far, and I can't wait to work on it more. I'll be back later, but I think I'm going to end the stream here. I don't think we'll raid anybody today. People I watch aren't really online right now, so I appreciate you coming in. Thanks, everybody. Little reminder that we've got a Discord. We've got our nice little AI API on our website. If you want to add AI like this to your games, we got a lot going on. Happy to help with your games as well. I always want to hear what you're working on. And you shared yours in the Discord if you ever want to check it out. Yeah, absolutely. I'll check it out. I'll grab some food and I'll check it out right afterwards. That'll be cool. Musical chairs with power-ups sounds fun. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm gonna be a human again. So see you guys next week. I'll be back at the regular time again. I know it's only like an hour and a half from the regular time, but I started a couple hours early today, so I'm at the end of it. But yeah, we're gonna get real big, and we'll see ya. Have a good one. You too. I should probably decrease the fog when you're this big, but